Hello, fellow humans. Chris here again. So, today I just wanted to briefly revisit the conversation that we had the other day about the mask mandate being lifted in California, but specifically, I want to talk about school children. So, I alluded to the fact in the last video that the mask mandate has not yet been lifted for schools, public schools in California. That is going to be revisited on February 28th. And they're going to make a decision then. There's a lot of indication that it might be lifted at that time, but it's not lifted yet. So even though the indoor public mask mandate in California statewide has been lifted, school districts are not authorized to lift the mandate. Having said that, there are actually quite a few school districts that are doing that, including the neighboring district to the one my kids go to right now. This isn't legal. They're just doing it. But it's happened for the last couple of years. Really, there have been a lot of counties. Even my county. The sheriff's department had openly announced that they were not going to be enforcing. Back in Thanksgiving of 2020, when there was party limits to how many people you could have in a gathering, they weren't going to be enforcing that. It's one of those things that's kind of a law on paper, but not necessarily always enforced. Be that as it may, it is currently the law of California that public schools, are still masked. There are still a lot of parents, especially now that the mask mandate has been lifted statewide, who are upset about their particular school board not lifting the mandate yet. And there have been a lot of boards going on, public boards, where this has been brought before the council or before the union, and some are lifting it, as I said, illegally, but many are not. And I know people who are really upset about this. And the thing I wanted to comment on was that, you can have your opinion on whether or not kids should be wearing masks at school, but to be calling school boards evil and like people that need to go to hell or be burned because of their selling out their kids, that anger is misplaced. Without getting into my personal opinion on whether that's a fair assertion, they're not the ones that have the authority to make that decision right now. They're bound by the state. Just because you see other school districts choosing to willfully defy those laws doesn't mean that makes that legal, or that means that other districts ought to be following the lead there. I kind of remember some philosophy, some phrase about following your friends off a bridge or something like that when we were kids. Now, with the whole mask mandate thing, should we be lifting the mandates for our kids if we're allowed to go out without them in public? Well, I should also mention that that's for people who are fully vaccinated. Now, again, as I said before, also, this isn't really being checked, so it's an honor system. But the numbers of vaccinated students is actually quite low compared to the population, especially in the 5 to 11-year-old group. And the reason for this largely is because the 5 to 11-year-olds are not actually currently required to be vaccinated to go to school. The reason for that being that they only have emergency authorization, like we had with the vaccine and originally when it was only under emergency use. The FDA has officially approved the use of the Pfizer vaccine for kids 12 and up, and they're required to be vaccinated. But students 5 to 11 don't have that requirement right now. And as it stands, it's only about 1 in 4 students in that age group that are vaccinated. So those parents right now are choosing to not get their kids vaccinated. They're still able to go to school, but the rub to that is that you still have to be masked. So I don't know if there's an overlap between parents who are especially mad about having to wear the masks or their kids having to wear the masks and parents that are not having their kids be vaccinated. Because I understand it can go both ways. I mean, everyone in my family is fully vaccinated, and I get frustrated sometimes that they still have to wear their masks, but we're doing what we can to try to mitigate the spread, try to stop the spread. If you're advocating for pulling off the masks, you have to accept some level of responsibility for when things surge again. And as we know, COVID, by the numbers, doesn't affect kids the way it affects adults. However, it absolutely can be contracted and spread just as easily with the larger population. And, we need 70 to 90% fully vaccinated in order to get herd immunity, and we're not even close to that. In the 5 to 11-year-olds, it's 1 out of 4, and even in 12 and up, it's just shy of 2/3, which is still a little bit below that number. So I get it. I get the frustration about still having to wear the masks. I mean, it's been a year that we've had a vaccine available. So I get it. And especially if you have done your part and gotten your family vaccinated, I understand being upset that we're still having to wait. But if you do that, if you did take those steps, then that also means that you acknowledge that there is a risk and that there's a global pandemic going on, and you take some level of community responsibility for the people around you, the people in your community. And if you do that, then you should probably be able to understand why we would still have our kids wear a mask, even if we don't necessarily apply that to the greater population. And as I say a lot of times, it's a numbers game at the end of the day. So I think if you are really upset about this, then your anger would be better placed with the state as opposed to your school board for simply following the law. But you also need to re-examine the things that make you really upset and the alternatives to those things. Because, yeah, I mean, it can be inconvenient wearing the mask, but we're just shy of 1 million deaths now from COVID in this country. And people have died since this discussion started this morning. So there's not a perfect answer. There's not a situation that's going to resolve everything for everybody. Somebody's going to be inconvenienced. But you can choose the inconvenience of wearing a mask, or you can choose the inconvenience of hospitals being overrun, nurses having to do triage and people dying because they can't get into a hospital bed. Maybe not even dying of COVID, just dying because they couldn't get seen because somebody else with COVID was taking up a room. This is what goes with a global pandemic. That's just how it is. So again, you can be upset, you can be angry, but you have to accept the responsibility that comes with that. Were we to lift the mandate for kids across the board, which, as I said, it very well may happen in less than 2 weeks, I strongly believe, and I've said this before, just of lifting the mask mandate for vaccinated people in California, I think there's gonna be a surge. But if you lift it for the schools across the board, there will absolutely be a massive COVID surge in the state, and it's gonna clog up the hospitals again, and we're gonna just be right back where we started. And that's just the way it is. It's the way it's been for the last 2 years, so there's no reason why it would be any different now. So anyway, just wanted to share that thought. I hope everyone's doing well. I will catch up with you all again very soon. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, don't be afraid to question the consensus.